Today, my guest, you've known and seen her for many, many years. You know her father, her husband, her kids, her niece, her brothers. I don't think she could escape professional wrestling if she tried. She's a model, she's an artist, she's an author. She's really done it all. She's none other than Miss Diana Hart. Diana, how are you?
Well, I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time out and have a little conversation about your life and your time in, the professional wrestling world.
Oh, well, you're if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm not as interesting as probably some of your guests and a lot of my family members, but I'm going to give it my darndest. I'm going to try my best
Well, I'm
and keep
looking
it
forward to
real.
speaking with you. So, growing up, what was it like growing up, and how did you figure out what professional wrestling was really? Because it's always been a part of your life, since you've been born.
Well, we grew up, it was such a unique situation. I mean, the wrestling business was run right out of the house on the second floor, and we always had unusual characters, but I didn't really notice anything until I started school. And
Hmm.
then I just kind of saw that my family and I were different. I think although we're, in a demonstrative industry, where you're a character and in Davey's case and Harry's case, larger than life. But
Hmm.
we were shy. I mean, my brothers and sisters, my mom and dad, we were pretty shy. I never really, and so that was different. That wasn't like something that is unique to anybody or unique to me being shy, but it was different. Even in wrestling, being shy because a lot of people, I guess it takes all kinds to make things work, but we were um, we were kind of shy though. I mean, I can see it in my family's personality in the ring. Even we were just always kind of shy, but uh, it was just really different though. Growing up, being in my family, because I don't know, it just seemed like we were targeted for criticism. You know, and I could not understand that, and I didn't, and I kind of couldn't understand why my family or why my dad was targeted when I went to school with people, even teachers, not just classmates, saying that my dad was a fake. It's like my dad is a fake. He's like my dad is such so much the genuine article,
Hmm.
and I kind of thought that's not fair. That well, maybe I don't care maybe about what's fair, but what's fair and what's right are two different things. But either way, it didn't sit well with me, and I'm sure it didn't sit well with my brothers and sisters when they got bothered at school by people and classmates and stuff. So that kind of made me think we were different. But as when I got older and wrestling had become kind of cool, like in the 80s when I met Davey and stuff, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder about um, how I felt Davey was superior to anything I'd ever met, and I kind of wore that on my sleeve, like like I love to flaunt it, and that was kind of different because I was, as I said, I was shy, or my family was shy, but now I had this. elixir, which was Davey Boy Smith, that had my back everywhere. It wasn't just me, duking it out in the hallway at school. Not like I was. I think my brothers would have been the ones duking it out. But anyway, no hard feelings. I had kind of an arrogance about me once I got into like a different category with Davey because he was such a specimen, and he like my dad was another genuine article. And then later on he went on to the Japan and WWF and stuff, and I always knew that he was the real deal. And um you it's a pecking order, and you got to be able to stand up for yourself and put your money where your mouth is. And he could do that. The Dynamite Kid could do that. My brothers could do that. And I just always felt like I was part of something that stood out. So
What's crazy to me is growing up, as many of siblings as you had, anybody would try to pick on any of you because I'm sure someone would say something and handle everyone else at that point.
yeah, the boys. I mean, the girls. It wasn't so bad for me. I
Hmm.
had kind of being the one of the youngest, because it was me and then Owen. We were the babies, but I got to watch and learn, and I guess watch, listen, and learn from what my older brothers and sisters went through. So I had heard some of these stories growing up, and then when I saw them was experiencing them myself, it was like, oh, so someone's knocking you and saying that your dad's a fake. What you do is you run at them and get them in like a bulldog, like a running headlock, and you bring them down to was the one time I did that, it was snowing, so it wasn't like, there was no hard landing there. But I mean, it wasn't. But I was going in for the kill on that one because I don't know what, I was probably grade 3 or something, just, and probably playing by myself. There was uh one girl that I was friends with, a year older, but you see, I didn't know anybody when I went to school. I didn't grow up, and neither did my brothers and sisters. But when I started school, I didn't know anyone. I just, got dropped off at this big building, and but I did have my brothers and sisters to kind of understand what this thing called school was all about. But that you don't know everything when you start grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. It's like that was kind of when it was sinking into me that um seemed like any chance someone got, they'd some kid would say my dad was a fake, or his dad could beat my dad up. And I'm like, how come this is just happening to me? Like, I don't hear these discussions going on, while I'm sitting off by myself. I'm minding my own business. I'm not hearing, you know, um, this girl and that girl talking about how her dad could beat the other girl's dad up, or this teacher saying to this kid how her dad's a fake or something. So I just was like, oh, this is what my brothers and sisters were talking about. Oh, and I know it would have been one of the boys that took someone down in a headlock. But so I did that. Or I do remember that little fight. And there was one girl named Nancy who was kind of on my side, because I think her dad was a wrestling fan, and she was kind of cheering me on. But it lasted all about 30 seconds. So it was this. So that made me all tough.
Yeah.
30-second fight at best. So I'm hardcore gangster.
Undefeated. Growing up, did you ever want to step into the ring and be a wrestler, or was it just being around it so much? Was that just you knew from an early age that that wasn't for you?
Um, you know, I actually did kind of have a knack for it, although I
Hmm.
didn't learn professionally, but I don't know, it's kind of like maybe bear cubs have a knack for wrestling or, play wrestling, play fighting, or, you see bear cubs are always, and kittens and stuff, they're always, kind of locking up. But um, when I was growing up, though, like becoming a teenager, um, they had this thing called the face of the 80s. And it was all these faces, and there was female girls, and if you were the face of the 80s, you were going to get this big modeling contract. And there was a girl that won it that was from Calgary. And actually, she had dated one of my brothers, and her name was Donna Rupert. And I was quite inspired by that. So I wanted to be in the camera, in the spotlight in some way, but um, I just didn't quite like, and I liked amateur wrestling, but I mean, I really did. I was good at it.
Hmm.
But my mom was very against the whole idea. I'm not sure what, I did go to university. I did go, I don't know that I actually was university material, but I think my mom just had, had, just figured I was going to inherit her brilliance and just, get through university and become some, I don't know, a teacher, I guess. That's what I went to university to become. But I always wanted to be in something like in sports, and
Hmm.
modeling was kind of, so I did get into fitness modeling. That was through my brother Dean, but um, in the 80s or late 70s, when probably, it would have been the best time for me to absorb like how to wrestle professionally and take bumps. Um, I was modeling, and I started to do what was then called fitness modeling. And um, again, I just was always kind of like in an abstract parallel to wrestling. I was, like fitness modeling or modeling or hanging out with my brothers or, uh, being Davey's girlfriend. And I mean, there was this glamour, definitely, and fame attached to being who I thought was the greatest wrestler I ever met,
Hmm.
um, besides my dad. But I didn't really see my dad wrestle because by the time he was like he was older when I was starting to grow up, because I was
Hmm.
the last of the Owen and I were the last of the kids born. So, but there was it's sort of so I was used to being in the spotlight, anyways. What I'm trying to say, but when I did actually get a real like finally, like, I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore, I'm going to ask my brother Smith to help train me to wrestle. I was in my 30s, and I I'm pretty sure that, I mean, this will sound funny, but I think I got brain damage from how bad I took bumps. I just remember falling again and again and again on the back of my head, and then throwing up because it was just wasn't from like being exhausted, like if you ran and or you're blown up and you
Hmm.
got food in your stomach and you gotta, you exerted yourself so much you've got to vomit. This was like from actually hitting the back of my head down in the basement. And after like a few days of that, it's like, I'm terrible at this, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So, but throwing coffee in someone's face or slapping someone on the in the side of their head is, I could handle that. I was in my 20s though, but it was great days then.
How in how intense is like the fitness modeling, and especially back then? Like how was that world to get into that for you?
That was really competitive, and uh, I kind of, I mean, it was bodybuilding that I ended up getting, competing in,
Hmm.
and it was hard. I mean, in the '80s, like I feel like I share that with Davey, like the female bodybuilding when Davey first came to Calgary in '81, like there were famous bodybuilders all over the world, but it hadn't really like hit Calgary. But Davey was really into it already,
Hmm.
but not everybody in Calgary was. So he was kind of like he was. I feel like he was a lone wolf. And when I got into uh, bodybuilding, which was inspired by Davey and my dad. Um, there weren't that many bodybuilders, female bodybuilders, so I would, learn about them on my own. But like the muscle and fitness, you'd have to look for
Hmm.
the like Corey Everson or an Angela Langer or um, there Rachel McLeish, Bev Francis. Bev Francis was one of the first. She was pretty impressive, but whenever I competed though, I did feel there was a real like it was a legitimate competition.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I'd highly recommend it for anybody. I feel like that Alanis Morissette song where she'd highly recommend anybody. I don't know, making fun of themselves. I don't know. It's in one of her songs, but I'd highly recommend like a contest where you don't know who's gonna win. I mean, maybe there's politics in it, like there is in wrestling or whatever pro sports. That doesn't mean whoever is the world's champion is actually the best in the world. But at the same time, when I competed, I don't know that I was the best, but I would always come in second. I would never get. But I don't know if I was. I, I was very shy though, and I did sometimes just didn't have that confidence level. Um, but it was a good experience to compete in amateur bodybuilding, and the dedication that I had to put in every day in the gym, and I learned a lot about that from Davey and my brother-in-law BJ owned the gym, BJ's gym in Calgary, and it was a hardcore gym. In BJ's when he first opened the gym up, it was a club, so it was only boxers or like Olympic powerlifters and stuff. You couldn't train there, and then unless you were like a going to the Olympics. And then he did open it up to some of the female powerlifters, but it was a hardcore gym. And then, like by the time I was 16, it had become a co-ed gym, and I was very proud to represent BJ's gym, and but anyway, some of these people when they got on stage though, like they'd have the dance moves and it was just they were very polished, and I didn't have that refinement. I got it many years later when I competed again like 2006, but even then I'm more of a fundamentalist when it came to stuff like
Hmm.
that. It was more like hold the pose for like 5 seconds, but others were like it was very fluid and stuff, but I would be like so but I because that's how I was taught. You're supposed to show the audience each, what muscle part, and from head to toe, have your whole leg flexed and your bicep and your abs, and and turn around and do that again on with your back to the crowd and have your calf flexed and stuff. But it was it was I still love to train in the
Hmm.
gym, and you know I don't know if sometimes I feel like I'm kind of getting lazy though, but I go probably 3 times a week. But anyway,
Meeting Davey, how did that go with your family and your father? And how long after meeting him did you know that he was the one that you wanted?
oh, what a choice! What a lovely question. I love that. Well, I knew. Well, when I saw Davey's picture and his dad had sent the pictures to show my dad what, and his dad was sort of representing him to
Hmm.
come to Calgary, and this was 81. And I'd always been quite fascinated with the Dynamite Kid because I had never seen anyone wrestle the way he had. And I was also just like, I was 14 when I met the Dynamite Kid, old enough to realize this guy was like unlike anything the world had ever seen before. So fast forward to 81, I caught wind that the Dynamite Kid's cousin is tentatively coming to Calgary one day. So I happened to see the pictures that were sent to my dad from Davey's father, and was like, oh my gosh, what a handsome guy this guy is. And I didn't know what he could wrestle like, but I thought if he's anything like the Dynamite Kid, wow. So
Hmm.
I was acutely aware of him coming to Calgary now, and he had arrived, and like I'm kind of condensing this into like this 2 months into a matter of this conversation right now. He came to the house. It was like late in the afternoon, and Bruce was bringing him. Bruce had to get something at the house. I don't know what was tape for the ring, the ropes or something, but I believe they were going to Red Deer, which is like an hour and a half outside of Calgary, so they could leave later. And he was kind of not chaperoning Davey, but Davey had just arrived on the scene, so he was sort of like, hang out with me for the next day and all, introduce you to the wrestlers and stuff. So he came to the house, and Bruce was off looking for whatever it was he needed. And I saw Davey in the front hall at the house, um, not that far from where we actually got married. And honest, I'm not kidding. After talking to him, I knew that I had to be his wife. Like I just, it was like I got it all solved. I
Hmm.
met this guy. I'm gonna marry him. He's gonna be the um, brother-in-law, and we're gonna have kids. And like it all unfolded in my head
Hmm.
at this point. And then when I saw him wrestle, um, which was the following Saturday on TV, so he wrestled live Friday night. So maybe 2 days later, I was totally Twitter pated. I absolutely uh, love at first sight, but infatuation. And um, I could not, I was like, there's no way well, see, I had had a few boyfriends, not that many. My mom and dad were pretty strict and protective
Hmm.
of me, but they were particularly my mom, who never really was like nobody ever saw her. But I did have one boyfriend who got me in late because we went to see the movie The Deer Hunter, and it's like a 3.5 hour movie. And I got home late, like I don't know, it was like quarter after midnight, and my mom came down the stairs, and she told this guy off, and like he was just like Oh my gosh, like it kind of put the run on him. Like he was a nice guy. And then I had another boyfriend, and he was uh he was really nice too, but he had, he was in university and stuff, so a little bit older than I was, but very, very respectful of me. But um I just thought, I'm not going to let my mom get put the run on Davey, because I've got to marry him. Like it was interfering with my life plan. I
Hmm.
know this sounds silly and stuff, but I'm not embellishing this.
No.
I when I met him and then I saw him wrestle, it was like there's no way I'm letting this go, and there's no way I can have anybody else. Like I have to have this guy. I
Hmm.
was so committed to this idea, and we happened to get along really well. And he like there wasn't like we were like a mismatch or anything. And then we did have a lot in common, and I loved his sense of humor, and loved how he wrestled, and loved how he got along with my family. And so but the first time I met him, I was he was everything that I thought he would be times 1,000. Like, and then he just became so much more than that. On top of that, I sure miss him.
Did did you present this to your family, or did they find out their own way?
Well, that's a very good question. I have a particular example of that. So it was spring of '81. I don't know, like May. So I'm still in high school. My mom, as I said earlier, had this, she's just presuming I'm going to go right from um, graduating in June. So where I started in the year, it's not a huge difference, but I started school when I was 5, not
Hmm.
kindergarten, but grade 1 when I was 5. So when I graduated, I was 17. A lot of people were already 18 when they graduated. But so I would have, you know, for my mom and dad, their idea was me to just go right into university in September. And I had my brother Dean, who was, helpful in getting me launched with some of my modeling and things like that. He was a very entrepreneurial, and he was a great promoter. And he he told me, and he told my brother Ross too. He said, "Don't go right into university. Do stuff with that year, make the most of it." And Dean lived in Hawaii, so I would go. I had gone to visit him a few times, and got the real full Dean experience of how to uh, how to do what you want to do, kind of thing. But
Hmm.
so um, so I turned 18 in October, and Davey turned 19 in end of November. On Davey's birthday at the end of November, I knew he was going back to England in January because he had like a 9-month visa, and I was like, like, oh, like, what am I going to do when he goes? And I hope he's coming back. Like I was very, very worried about all of this, even though,
Hmm.
you know, I told you already, my plan was he and I are going to get married, and, you know, I had this, very adult plan in my head. But so I paid out of my own money a plane ticket for me to go to England. It's kind of an arrogant thing for me to do, but I gave it to Davey at a restaurant. I had to get the waiter to go along with it. He was really almost useless. Like, it's like, can you just put this airline ticket under this platter and bring it to the table and lift it up? And he's like, well, is it food? And no, it's just a ticket. It's an airline ticket. And he he did do it, but it was very hard to do this while I'm at the restaurant. trying to take Davey out for dinner
Mm-hmm.
and, not keep disappearing. It's like something out of Mrs. Doubtfire when he's trying to put the, that whatever cayenne pepper in the shrimp.
Yeah.
So, anyway, um, so Davey was pretty excited. He's like, "Oh, you're going to come to England in March." And I said, "Yeah, I'm because I want to see you." And he was excited and said, "You'll meet my mom and dad." And I had written to his mom and kind of got uh, some approval that this would be okay to do. But anyway, I told my mom after when I saw Davey was happy about it, and my mom just said, "No, that's not happening." And she's already mad that I hadn't started university in September. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "You have to start university in the winter semester." I'm like, "No, I'm not starting university at all this year. I'm going to go and see Davey. And before that, I'm going to visit Dean in Hawaii for a month and
Mm-hmm.
get a tan and look my absolute best for when I meet his parents." And
Mm-hmm.
she just said, "No, no, you're not doing it." And she thought that was the end of the story, and she never mentioned it to my dad. And my mom was such a sweetheart. I'm not trying to make her into a tyrant, but she was just so protective of me. And um, like sometimes she was absolutely right too. Like I had a chance to go to Japan for modeling, and she said, "No, that you can't do that. Something bad could happen to you." And not, who knows, but she was probably right. I didn't have any street smarts to be
Mm-hmm.
going over to a country I don't speak any of the language. And so she was probably right there at, even sending me away to New York, where I would have spoken the language, probably would have been not so good for me. I was just too shy and not very street smart. But going to England, it's like, nope, I'm going. And so I went to Hawaii, which I know she wasn't thrilled about because she wanted me to go to university that winter. And I came back and I did some Sunshine Girl pictures. The Sunshine Girl was the Calgary Sun newspaper, and
Mm-hmm.
I had become sort of their. Well, I was doing a lot of modeling for them, and did some stuff with my tan and the bathing suit out in the snow, and it was kind of fun. I mean, people back then remembered it, like filling my Corvette, which wasn't my Corvette, but filling my Corvette up with gas to show that gas prices had gone up. But the newspaper was kind of zany about stuff like that. We'll get the
Mm-hmm.
girl in the bikini to fill her sports car up with the snow and show how gas prices have gone up like 5 cents or whatever it was at that time. So I did that picture just before I left for England. But the day I was leaving, Davey's aunt, who lived in England, called to say, "Wish me a good trip." And I heard the phone ring, and I don't know, it's just this gut feeling. Um, that it was something to do with me. I didn't even know who my dad was talking to yet. He just said, "Hello." And, "Oh, who? Oh, Mavis." And then it's like, Mavis. Anyway, it was Davey's Aunt Mavis in Edmonton. And um, I didn't know Diana was going to England. Not that I know of. Anyway, so then everything, as they say, hit the fan. And my mom and dad now are like, "No, you're not going." So anyway, I waited till later when they just figured I went to bed. And Brett's then girlfriend and later wife, Julie, who really took a lot of heat, she came to the house and with Brett's still best friend, they'd been friends since elementary school, took me to the airport. And I left. It was like a red eye, and went to London. And in the morning I was gone, and my mom and dad were so mad about that. Um, my mom was heartbroken, and then a few I don't know, just, talk around the water cooler or whatever, talk around the kitchen table. It's
Hmm.
like, maybe they got married. Maybe she went over there to get married. And that was something I heard was suggested, that I had gone over there to get married. And my mom was so upset because my sister Georgia had eloped when she was 19. And my mom and dad didn't take that too well. I mean, it all worked out fine.
Hmm.
BJ ended up becoming George's, well, they got married and he became a great, and still is a great brother-in-law. But what an ordeal. And then I didn't know when I got back, um, Jim Neidhart used to imitate uh, my mom. He did, it's just in fun, but how my mom said he'd never work in the territory ever again. And he would do it in my mom's voice. And so I got back to Calgary after a month in England. So I was gone like 2 months between Hawaii and England. And I was like, I was just sick about all of this. Like, I ruined Davey's life. He can't come back to Calgary. But Davey, like, my dad knew Davey wasn't a bad guy, and my dad knew what a great wrestling talent he was. And he looked at it more objectively than my mom did. She still kind of held a grudge, but my dad was so, and Davey didn't know any of this. He just, said goodbye to me when I was leaving to come back to Calgary. Um, it was around Easter. I don't like sometime in April, and goodbye, and I'll see you when I get my visa and get it sorted out. He didn't know any of this, so when he called to talk to my dad about, what's the plan for me? When do you want me to come back? They just worked it out like two professionals, and my mom didn't really um, interfere with that. But um, again, like, though, it's just the I was very committed to this, this dream I had with Davey. And so when you asked what was it like when Davey and I did start going out. So when Davey and I got married, he got engaged to me, or we got engaged. He asked me to marry him at my sister Allison's wedding at the house, but I didn't know that he was going to ask me to marry him. He was very traditional, and he asked my mom and dad that day, and he had a ring. But he asked them that day, and he told me on the porch where he asked me, I, I, I was like, yes, I'll marry you, but what about my mom and dad? Did they say? He said, well, your mom almost fainted, but your dad, he was pretty happy about it. So, I mean, this was like 1983, like 2 years later.
Hmm.
My mom was still, and a funny thing, to the day Davey died, he always referred to my mom as Mrs. Hart, but they got along really well after we got, I mean, they always got along. It was never, my mom was just uh, had too much dignity and was just always just very appropriate. She never let these things show in public, but between her and me, she was kind of thinking I was meant for something else. Like, I honestly think she thought I was supposed to marry one of the Kennedys. Like, I think she thought that was just the way it was going to go. And it's like, well, I don't know how that's going to happen. And in my opinion, I was marrying the greatest,
Hmm.
the best fit, the greatest. I wanted to marry a wrestler. I don't know. I wanted to marry somebody like my dad.
Hmm.
I just, and I thought Davey was very much like my dad in a lot of ways. And he was very courageous and strong, and such a good wrestler, and the way he was protective. And so but it all worked out. And many years later, Davey started going with me to jazzercise. It's this um so for different reasons, he'd go with me because he could spend that time with me because he was on the road so much. And once he started, because he was a really good dancer, by the way, he was a very he had a lot of rhythm, but he said it's a great workout. And then after we'd go for coffee, and he'd sit next to my mom, like just, and it was sort of a protective thing, but he
Mhm.
and my mom became very close over these bonding sessions after the jazzercise. And they sit and talk for an hour about whatever, some drama in the house or, family drama and it was a really nice thing to see how they, she really grew to love him as one of her own,
Mhm.
so to speak.
How was it? You're with Davey, and his star is starting to rise in professional wrestling. Was it hard being a wife at that time, and then when you had kids, because he was gone so much? Like, because especially back then, it felt like the professional wrestling business didn't really give back. It seems like it's a little different
Yeah,
now, but back then they wanted you 365.
yeah, yeah. I went through his journal. He used to keep a journal, which the other wrestlers, including a couple of my brothers, one of my brothers for sure, would borrowed his journal for their taxes because he kept a note of everything, every his gym, every expense and his receipts, and he he learned he was very organized. So, but I was going through his journal. I have his 1986 journal, and I counted. He's like 46 days or something like that on the road, and it was like double shots on weekends, and he would fly me out back back in those days, and Harry, because Harry could fly for free and just sit on my lap, and we just missed each other, and then Davey missed Harry so much, and but like when he started going on the road to Japan, he was gone for a lot of long
Hmm.
spells then too, and our phone bills were crazy, unbelievable, like more almost like $1,000 a month. We were at that time it was Alberta government telephones, and
Hmm.
um, you didn't get any breaks. It was the government, so just and my I remember my dad said you got to cut down, like it just you got to figure something else out because your phone bills are gonna you're not putting any money in the bank, but
Hmm.
it was hard though. Other times, like when we moved to Florida, he was always gone on his birthday or my birthday or the kid's birthday, Christmas, because the practicality of it, you'd leave Christmas Day to get to your show for Boxing Day, and Boxing Day is always a good day for wrestling because everybody's done with Christmas and looking for something to do. You got family over and stuff, so that was kind of an anniversaries, and but it was just made it more fun when he got home. Davey was always generous and take everybody out for dinner and you know get whatever you want. It's just so things like that you look forward to. Like you knew when he'd come home, it was going to be some kind of celebration, and lots of times he'd fly his family from England to Florida, and he would do that to help give me company and help
Hmm.
at home. So he was a good guy to have. If you are going to be living with those kinds of schedules, which they were all in those days, he was a good guy to help make the most of it, and we never had any problems. But it was in that regard. But it was hard though. It was sad, and I think I got depressed, um, more than he was aware of. Just and being back then, I was in Florida, not in Calgary, so that he did bring his mom and dad out a lot to help me, but I was I did miss him when he'd go away. That it was hard, and hard for him too. And
Hmm.
living out of a suitcase in hotels, at least I was at home and I have our kids and some kind of a routine. But I think it's hard for a lot of wrestlers when they have that kind of schedule and they do that for years and years and years. Your family on the road is who you spend the more time with than your actual family, and it can be a really hard adjustment, and especially if you retire and now
Hmm.
you're not on the road at all, and you're but anyway, we it was still Davey did he worked really hard to keep things going as well as he could.
Did it pick up once he signed with the WWF? Then was his schedule more hectic once he signed with WWF?
Sometimes it was more hectic. um when he signed in 1998 with WCW, he one part of the uh, lure there, or one bit of something that was appeared to be an incentive. That's the word I'm
Hmm.
trying to think of. Was that he would be on at home more often.
Hmm.
He would be getting paid more money to be on the road less. And but it actually was a real that was a big mistake, because part of it meant part of that meant that um, his character, or his they weren't using him as he was being used when he was still in WWF in '97. And it's not that Davey had an ego, because he didn't. He had um, uh, dignity though, and
Hmm.
but he appreciated how the WWF used him, even if it was in a hectic, a lot of days on the road, or keeping him busy with appearances and stuff. He could handle that. It was just he felt like he was being well utilized, and then to go
Hmm.
to something that was quite a bit different, even for more money, it was actually it was heartbreaking. So I think WWF though, they like Vince McMahon had a good rapport with Davey. Like, he could talk to Vince, and same with my dad. Like, Davey, I think he just learned that from right from when he was 15.
Hmm.
Go to the horse's mouth. Go to the source, and talk it over, whatever it is. So if he needed time off, or if there was something wrong with me, um, he just asked. Like in Vince's case, with my dad, if he needed time off during the Stampede Wrestling days to go home and see his family, because he'd been away from them for a year, he'd get the time off, and he'd go and come back, and things would resume as they were. But and then the stuff with Japan, that became, just thinking about it. I hadn't really thought about it till I'm talking to you about it right now. But he barely got home after he started going to Japan, because he would be in Japan for a month at a time, and then come back and work for my dad, and go back to Japan, and then come back. He didn't really, that must have been hard on him, because he was very close to his family and roots
Hmm.
back in Galborn.
I, all the respect in the world for someone that whether they show it or not, like you said, that it's got to be hard for everybody involved. And I just hate that was something that he had to experience, and that was difficult, whether he showed it or not.
Yeah.
How did they convince you to start making some appearances in professional wrestling? They reach out to you, they go through Davey, be like, hey.
They went through Davey. I think it was Davey who proposed it about getting me involved in well, in particular, like when he was wrestling like at 95 and afterwards. But the SummerSlam 92, I don't know who actually how it came about. I mean, I was a common denominator with
Hmm.
the sister, Brett's sister and Davey's wife. But I was quite happy to be a part of. Well, I was more than happy. I was honored. It was one of the most important things that had happened to Davey, and I was a part of it. And
Hmm.
um, I it meant so much to him and me and my family and Davey's family. My dad loved the match so much, but um, when Davey uh, asked Vince, I think he just said if you would ever want to put Diana in some kind of storyline or something, she looks, Davey putting me over. I'm not saying I look good, but he said that, like she looks good and, she trains. Like he probably gave me quite the big build up, and Vince would see me from time to time, usually at a WrestleMania, and say hello and stuff. So it's not like he had never seen me before, but um, when it came time to doing that Hershey, Pennsylvania match that Davey had with Brett, I was brought in initially, well, to get that launched,
Hmm.
but they originally wanted me to attack Brett in the ring with like act like with Davey, but act like we were going to be honoring him in some capacity. Like, and then I had a bunch of roses, and I was going to present them to Brett, and he'd be like, well, thank you, and what's this for? Oh, well, we just want to give you these roses, and I don't know, probably Vince would have been in the ring. I'm not sure who else would have been in the ring to sort of navigate that, but they wanted me to attack Brett with the roses, the thorny roses, and like Brett would be like bleeding and stuff, and um, somebody in my family didn't care for the idea, so
Hmm.
I was like, okay, okay. So anyway, as it turned out, they still did this thing with the match with Brett and Davey, and it was a really good match, totally different than SummerSlam '92, and I loved being a part of it. We were more villains though, not the fan favorites.
Hmm.
But I at the time I wanted to be like very business like. Because I sure looked up to Elizabeth, Miss Elizabeth, Randy's wife and his valet, but I couldn't be Elizabeth because there's only one Elizabeth. And
Hmm.
um, so I was trying to think of like some way to be different than her, but still kind of be in the ring, but I'm not a wrestler, and I'm Diana, not a fictitious name. I'm like
Hmm.
Diana Davy's wife. So I was sort of formal in the beginning, but that match where Davey wrestled Brett and Hershey in your house, he did an upside down turnbuckle. Davey did, and Brett was bleeding, and it was like very. It was an excellent match. It was almost outrageous. Like it was some of the stuff that. But Davey did this upside down turnbuckle, and I thought he broke his neck. He just like literally like stubbed his head. He bounced on the top of his head, like, and he's heavy, you know, like
Yeah.
like to land upside down in motion, not just like falling out of a chair, and you kind of like he bounced on his head, and I thought he broke his neck, and Brett's bleeding, and I wasn't sure if it was Brett's eye that was bleeding because the things around the ring, you hear fans talking even though you're watching the match. It's like, oh, Brett's eye is bleeding, I hope you're happy, like these fans like screaming at me, and I'm like, oof, and I was very concerned about that match. But anyway, I definitely got the bug for it, and started doing stuff with Davey, and um, I never really quite got it. Didn't ever quite take off. A lot of family interference, but
Hmm.
not in a bad way. It's just this overprotectiveness, and again, I'm not a Sable or Sunny or Marlena. I'm Diana Hart.
Hmm.
So the thing with Sean, it could have really gone more, but I mean, the idea was I'm having an affair with Sean, but at the same time, how can I be having an affair with Sean when I'm like really am Davey's wife? And
Hmm.
these were just, things that were proposed to me from, the from the Hart family side of things. You don't get too starstruck here, because be careful what you wish for. So how would that look for Harry and Georgia and stuff, even if they're kids? And at that
Hmm.
time, like, we're still protective of wrestling, so I would have either had to say, oh no, it's just a storyline, which I probably wouldn't have said because I grew up protecting it so
Hmm.
much. I would have maintained that. So how do you do that? So it 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 kind of faded away, but I sure loved that. And they kind of ended up putting me with Owen and Davey, and Jim Cornette was a very good guy to learn a lot about how to be a cunning um, bad bad guy manager. He was Jim Cornette really can think on his feet.
Hmm.
What do you do? It doesn't matter if something breaks or the whole thing, or it's all improvised. Think on your feet. Figure it out. He
Hmm.
was a great person for the short time I was there, but and then later it was when I won the Mrs. Calgary, and again that was a legitimate competition or contest. I got to be part of the Canadian Stampede um, in your house pay-per-view that last day with all my family and Brian Pillman and
Hmm.
Owen, Jim, Davey, Brett, Brian Pillman, and then my family at ringside. It was against Ken Shamrock, the Legion of Doom, Gold Dust, and um, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Hmm.
And the Premier of Alberta, the Honorable Ralph Klein, was at ringside, and he really loved my mom and dad, and a big fan of the family and of wrestling, and just that whole night was one of the, if I could go back in time,
Hmm.
that was something like I wish I wish I could. I mean, you can't just keep going back and reliving this same moment, but at the same time, it was just such an incredible night.
Hmm.
I just, and what an amazing, like all those guys on the Hart side all started out in like Brian Pillman and everybody. It was just such a great night. I just, no one knew where things would go in the months to follow and stuff, but that night, what a gift! Like,
Hmm.
like it all comes from God, but
Yeah.
WWF, but a gift from God. I mean, I just so grateful to have had that, been a part of that. And my kids were in the ring at the end, and I believe that was the only time or the first time my mom set foot in a wrestling ring. As a crucial part of wrestling as she was
Hmm.
for all that she did and helped get accomplished, I don't believe she ever set foot in a wrestling ring. It was just not anything she was needed to do, especially when she was and my dad were raising 12 kids. Things
Hmm.
that just wouldn't have been something she would be doing, is
Hmm.
in her 40s going into a wrestling ring, but for any reason. But later, through all the fame and adulation that came with what what happened after Stampede Wrestling and the WWF, and to be, you know, and it was Brian Pillman that helped her in the ring, which was very sweet. It just was such a great night.
I'm sure a lot of fans have told you their favorite Davey moments or matches, but what's some of yours? Like, what is maybe that the fans don't know? What's a favorite moment for you personally?
Uh, SummerSlam 1992, because I know how hard Davey worked for that, and he had the flesh eating infection in his left knee that was a real challenge for him, and he and Brett together created this beautiful masterpiece, and that's never been duplicated. I mean, the whole night, Wembley Stadium, and just so many um, precedents
Hmm.
were established from. And the first time I saw him wrestle in Calgary, um, he wrestled the Dynamite Kid. So he was just new in my life. That was an unforgettable match because the two of them had what a great match. They had other matches too, and they were all great. But that first one, because it was like the first time I had seen Davey wrestle live, and I was not even supposed to be there because the daughters didn't go to the wrestling. It's just another one of these things. But I was sure proud of him with well, I was just so swept off my feet. So that was another one there. Um, the Shawn Michaels of that one, because
Hmm.
I was there. And I mean, I was a part of the SummerSlam 1992, but um, the stuff that we did with Shawn was it was just a little different. I was more mature, and I wasn't so worried about Davy's knee because I mean,
Hmm.
many years later, he's you know there, I didn't have the worry that I had that night at SummerSlam, and so those are three that really stand out. The first time though that Davey wrestled Shawn, the power went out, and I just I remembered it, feeling it as from an insider, like when my dad would
Hmm.
have catastrophes for a Stampede Wrestling show, and I
Hmm.
just could feel the grief, and thinking what's my mom thinking at home, and she'd be worried and panicking and sick about it, and the power went out, one of the satellites went out, and I just thought this is so unfair to Davey and Shawn and the fans, and Vince, and no one knows how
Hmm.
hard it is to put on a show like that. Vince is the head of all of that. But I remember that night, though, there were a couple of the female valets. One of them was running around. I don't know, uh, like it was like the lights go out in the lunchroom, and all of a sudden there's a food fight. But I was like way like I was so serious about it. It's like, and we're in a big, huge, gigantic arena. There's all kinds of room to run around, and it wasn't pitch black or anything, but I was just like, how can you guys be having fun at a time like this? This is serious. Like
Hmm.
this is as bad as somebody getting hurt. Like if somebody, uh, tore their knee or something and the match has to get brought to a close. It was just like as the match was getting ready to happen, the power went out. And it's like, oh my, this isn't fair. This isn't fair, and on so many levels, and not just me and Davey, but to Sean and Vince and the fans. And but then they got to do a rematch, but it wasn't quite the same because it wasn't the pay-per-view
Hmm.
match. It was like the next day. But I was part of some really they just got a second chance to do
Hmm.
greatness all over again.
Hmm.
They just
What's your favorite British Bulldog look for Davey? Because he's had the long hair, the short hair, he's had the braids. What did Diana like best?
well, I kind of like. I mean, I loved them all.
Hmm.
I did, but I kind of liked when he had the curly hair,
Hmm.
the long curly hair. And I remember when he told me he was cutting his hair, Brett said he had to cut it. I don't know if Brett would remember that or even, but he said that their hair was too similar and they didn't, you know, he should just cut it. And I remember I was in Florida he, and I was like, I took it really hard. It's like, no,
Hmm.
and then I saw him because I wasn't there when he cut it. He cut it on the road, and I saw him on TV, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so handsome. I just, it's like, oh, you look like Mel Gibson. That's who I thought he looked like at the time. Mel Gibson to me is like a combination of Shawn Michaels and Davey. If you put their faces together, that's Mel Gibson. But I love how Mel Gibson looked, and I thought, and the sewing girls were. I think one of them he put me on the phone with one of them to tell me what he looked like, and she said, "Oh, Diana, you're gonna love it. He looks really, really good." So I watched it on TV, and he came out with his short hair, and it's like, wow, you do look good. But I was grieving it all day. I was like sick about it. like come on, Diana. But that was took took wore it on my sleeve for those few hours. But I was like, why doesn't Brett cut his hair then? If he I was so. But you see, for he Davey had like really nice, naturally curly hair, and it had a lot of body, and it was healthy, and I remember for the longest time I'd say, you should grow your hair out, and he'd say, no, I don't. I don't want to grow my hair out. It gets on my nerves. Same thing that I say to Harry, and I can't I can't nag Harry the way I could Davy, but that's how the braids got started. Was he said it this his hair would get to a certain length and it would just start driving him crazy.
Hmm.
So he did try to grow it long with the mullet look, which was popular in those days.
Hmm.
And he's just like, it's driving me crazy. I want to cut it. And there was a guy that had come back from, he was a disc jockey and he'd been in Jamaica or somewhere, came back with the cornrows. And I was like, that's kind of a cool look. Why, Davey, you should do that. And that way. you can grow your hair out while it's in the braids until it
Hmm.
gets long enough for you to tolerate it. So he still had the mullet, but then he started with the braids and then the red, white, and blue, and it became quite an iconic look.
It
And
did.
then, but when he would get the braids done, when his hair grew out from up here on his scalp, the poor guy, honestly, like I know when I put my hair up in a tight ponytail for too many hours, when I let it down, like it's like someone's been pulling your hair. It hurts when you let it down, and you
Hmm.
can get a headache. And I remember my brother Smith, when he was in the hospice, someone had put his hair up, and he said like it hurt so much. He said you got to take it out. Um, but with Davey, they would braid his hair. The girl or the in Florida would braid it so tight to have it stay in there longer. And it must have given him such a headache. And then one other time, he was wrestling Kurt Hennig, and his braid got wrapped around the rope, and
Oh.
it literally ripped out of his. And he had like you know how an orange, the outside of an orange, if you like try to rub it, it almost gets like an oil. That's what his
Hmm.
scalp looked like. It was like oil, like a wound. It wasn't like bleeding the way a gash would, but oh, that, and he just water off a duck's back kind of. But yeah, he was. So yeah, that was my favorite look, but I loved all of them. I think the shorter hair though was a really good look for him. It sure showed off his bone structure, and
Hmm.
he had the nice full cheeks and the dimple on his chin and the long eyelashes. It was a really, really good looking man.
Do you have a do you have a particular favorite run for Davey during his time, and whether WWF or WCW or wherever he went? Is there a particular time frame that is your favorite?
The time he had with Owen, the
Hmm.
Jim Cornette, the time he had with Owen, I think that he had the most fun then too. Um, he was in tags. It's kind of part of the Hart Foundation
Hmm.
stuff, but in particular, the time that he was with Owen, he just, and the two of them had come to like a realization, as I remember them talking about it. It didn't matter where you were on the card or whatever, you're still going to get paid the same amount. And
Hmm.
if you had the belt or you didn't have the belt, and I think the two of them just, I don't know if it just morphed when they became kind of like with each other so much, but
Hmm.
they all of a sudden just started having a blast. They just started having so much fun, and um but like an interesting thing, when he re-signed his contract, this was around 96, he was talking about to Vince about things, and Vince, like it was a really good time in Davy's life, and Vince said, I want to build a belt around you, the European
Hmm.
Championship belt. Like what a I mean, if that I know that Davey was, had he stayed in WWF after 97, I know he would have gone on to become a world's champion. I just I just there's no way you can prove something that, but he gave Davey the European belt, the built it around Davey. He brought Davey and Dynamite in. He actually flew to Japan to consolidate their contract, to get because they were still doing Japan when Brett and Jim had already gone. They were still doing Japan for um, well, well into 1985. My
Hmm.
dad sold the wrestling Stampede Wrestling in October of 80. Well, August actually of '84, and Davey and Dynamite were still doing Japan. Like they were making so much money over in Japan, and Vince, he's like, I got plans for you guys, and he kept his promise. He made them world tag team champions, WWF tag team champions at WrestleMania 2 in 1986 in Chicago. But like Vince, he really liked Davey and Dynamite as a team, but the chemistry that he had with Davey was really good, and Vince kept all of his promises that he made to Davey, whether um, you know whatever it was, giving him time off or doing something with me. He's like, okay, we'll bring Diana in, we'll do something. He did, but so I mean, the best was, although there was so many great moment after great moment after
Mm-hmm.
great moment. Davey's not limited to just one match or one partner or one style, like heel or baby face or one era. He was just he was layers of greatness. But
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that the best was, despite the injuries that he had since he's started when he was 15, and he didn't start out, like he paid his dues right from his training. His training wasn't easy, as and by from car accidents to just bumps in the ring to knee injuries to his broken back. Despite all of these things, and I know his body was had suffered a lot, I still feel that the best was yet to come for him.
Mm-hmm.
And but uh, I think I do appreciate, or I don't know, it's not a matter of gloating or anything, but the fact that Vince made the European title
Mm-hmm.
for Davey as an incentive to get him to stay with the company
Mm-hmm.
and not go to WCW. And that was before anything happened with Brett leaving
Mm-hmm.
to go to, was before the Montreal, way before any of that. This was '96. Like this, Davey had so much still to prove. And when he who knows, like as time went on and we realized he had a broken back and stuff, and he did return to wrestling, he was hurting quite a bit. I don't know that he was quite ready to come back, but he
Mm-hmm.
had something to prove. Um, Family things going on and people telling him you can't do this and you can't do that, and not giving him any um, support. He was like fighting mad, and it's like, I'm gonna get back in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I got stuff to prove. Well, anyway, by the time he was 39, though, like Harry was just a year away from graduating.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a year from graduate, in another year, like Davey and Harry could have been. Davey could have been managing Harry. Um, they could have been doing vignettes, Davey training Harry. Harry was already wrestling. They had,
Mm-hmm.
thank God, they had two tag matches in Winnipeg about 10 days before Davey passed, but Harry set that up. So Harry had plans too. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
me with, some idea that no people might not be able to visualize, because he died, and they might have their hypotheses, why
Mm-hmm.
he died, or wasn't his body was gave out, or that's it's this these things are just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
and I know that these are facts, but I won't go into that now. But Harry knew that he and Davey had some work to do too,
Hmm.
and they did their two tag matches. One was a triple tag, and one was a tag. And Harry saw it, Davey saw it, um, and we had reconciled too, just for the record. Although a lot of people don't want to um, acknowledge that. Because when we were apart, we actually had divorced. It was just not a good time for either of us, and
Hmm.
a lot of stupid things were said, and unfair things were said, and of course, people take advantage of people, and the media gets involved, and all of a sudden, it's like you're reading stuff in the newspaper that Davey supposedly said about me or I said about him in some hideous book that my name's. It's like, God, would you guys all just get the hell out of my life and just let
Hmm.
me and Davey figure this out?
Yep.
Which we did, and then he died. But this is, but I have a chance to talk about it and try to bring some truth to, you know, sometimes myths are great, like the myth, like, oh, the little boy chopped down the, gigantic oak tree or whatever, the Paul Bunyan carrying the bull and
Hmm.
stuff. There's some good myths and then there's some bad ones, but um, you know, I know you didn't ask me about that. It was
Yeah,
just a little
you're
when I
fine.
was talking about Harry and Davey and um, it just I just felt I needed to say that.
Hmm.
There
Absolutely.
was some.
As a fan, I can say that Davey's one of a handful of people from outside looking in that he, like you were saying, he had so many good matches. He's not defined by one match. He didn't have just one good match. He had good matches, and that's what makes him
Yeah.
so legendary. And it's still talked to the about this to this day. Is there's everyone's got a favorite match, and it's I'm sure you've learned that it's not all the same one every time a fan would talk to you, and that speaks a lot to how good he was and how much work he put in and how much he took this industry and his career serious.
Oh, he did. He wrestling was it was well, it's hard to separate it because his wife and his family were immersed in it, not
Hmm.
just like in a little way. We were so it really was hard to get away from it, but I don't know that Davey wanted to get away from it, right? From
Hmm.
I don't know what it was like for him before I met him, but from when he and I became, we're dating, it it was just such a you can't separate the family from the business in this case, like the McMahons. I don't think you can.
Hmm.
They definitely have their own things. I'm sure they're not they've done other things that are successful besides wrestling. Well, I know that they have, but
Hmm.
and done, been a part of a lot of incredible things. But Davey just he really he loved it so much, and I know he'd be really grateful for like the stuff that my daughter Georgia's done, and the fans that support her or supporting him. They're
Hmm.
either supporting him by supporting her or supporting her by supporting Davey. But it's very comforting to see the following that Davey has, and I
Hmm.
I just I want to see it grow and grow and grow. We're trying to get him in the Wigan Walk of Fame,
Hmm.
and there's some. some kind of weird stipulation there that you can, like, I don't understand this, but you can only be in the Walk of Fame, or that you can't be inducted unless you're alive. Like they won't induct somebody like like just for an example, Brian Ferry from Roxy Music. He's not from Wigan, but he's kind of from those parts.
Hmm.
But if he had passed away and someone said, "Let's get Brian Ferry a Walk of Fame," they'd say, "Well, he has to be alive to be inducted. He could be dead later, but he's got." So this is one. It's kind of a bizarre stipulation, or an unfair stipulation, I feel, because I think Davey is one of the most accomplished and most
Hmm.
well-known figure to come out of that area of England. I mean, he's actually from Galborn, but Wigan is kind of like Anaheim versus Los Angeles, or
Yeah.
well, maybe not that big a scale, but Wigan is bigger than Galborn, and it just, he was a part of a lot of I don't know. I hope so. We have a campaign that's been going for a long time to get Davey inducted into the Wigan Walk of Fame, but that would be something really nice. I know Davey would love to see it, or would have loved to have seen it. I believe Davey is somehow watching over. I don't know what heaven is like, or
Hmm.
what that, you know, but I do feel like sometimes it's not just Davey. Like sometimes I'll feel like Owen is around, or my mom or my dad, or someone will come over and say something to me, and it's like that is something almost word for word that my mom would have only said to me, and you just said it, or these little signs. So I don't know how that works, but I
Hmm.
have great faith that if I keep doing, just being a better person every day. I mean, we're all human and flawed, but that I will see Davy again and see everyone again one day. And I mean, that's a reason to want to do good, because
Absolutely.
if you don't, you're not going to be on that list. You're not going to make it.
Hmm. It
And
seemed
I'm
like,
not being
oh, you're
silly.
fine. No, you're not.
That's how I feel.
No, I agree with you 100%. It seemed like there was some time after Davy's passing, and then a couple years later, we finally started getting talked about on DVDs and new merchandise and new stuff. How did all that come to be? And how was that? Was that a good feeling for you when they wanted to put out some new British Bulldog merchandise, action figures, video games?
Oh, it was great news. It was such good news. That was Vince McMahon and his family as a way to help me and Harry and Georgia, because at the time when Davey died, there was um, we all of us, Davey included, we were all, well, I shouldn't put Harry and Georgia in that because they were just teenagers, but Davey and I were both like kind of starting over again. We didn't
Hmm.
have There was a bankruptcy, and where I was living, I wouldn't have even had anywhere to live if it weren't for my mom and dad. They were able to afford me a little condo for me, Harry, and Georgia, and then Davey and I had reconciled, and he was going to come and live with me there, but um, which was not, and I know that from Davey's father's statement in Davey's autopsy, which I only got to see the later part of 2025. I never saw it before that because I wasn't married to Davey, and for different reasons, I didn't really get to see it. I did have access to it when I started reading it, and it was disturbing to read how his head had been to do the autopsy, and they looked at his brain, and his jaw was wired shut and his just it was upsetting to me, so I just put it away. But
Hmm.
anyway, in 2025, I did get the went through it very carefully and read his father's statement. And his father explained, in his statement said Davey was going back to Diana, and he was going to be moving in with her. But at the time, that the things with the merchandise, and um, that was the McMahon family trying to help us and keep Davey's legacy alive, because they know he earned it. Um, it's not like it isn't nepotism, or they did it because he earned it. He did great things for their company. Dynamite did too, but Dynamite was only with them really just a short amount of time, 86 to end of 88. I mean, and the time that he was there, he did, you know, they all of them, and that literally they helped build a company through injuries and being accountable, being there, the long road trips, the brutal schedules. But you know, I don't think that Davey or Dynamite would have changed one bit of it. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe they wish they didn't get hurt, but they were making good money, and they were part of something that is still existing today, even bigger than it ever was. So, but it was really, really good that Vince I just feel it was. I know Linda McMahon as well, and probably Shane and Stephanie didn't have a big part of that then. They were younger, but they were part of the company even back then. They were doing
Hmm.
stuff in the office and getting involved, but they uh, they helped me to provide for Harry and Georgia, and I try not to take that for granted. My daughter Georgia certainly doesn't, and she works with the WWE now in a lot of stuff that happens with Davey. She was really instrumental just in general getting the bobbleheads
Hmm.
for all of the wrestlers. But it's another name, Funko Pop or
Yeah.
something, but it's basically the bobblehead. But she was helpful in getting that. She wanted it of Davey, and then there's like, well, we should do it for a lot of wrestlers, not and everybody does well then. So,
Hmm.
and I think, I mean, I don't know what WWE or what Vince does for other wrestlers, but I feel like for those that have reached out to him, or he's like, I see great, things with Paul Orndorff's legacy, and
Hmm.
Travis Orndorff is doing just great things. But I think that WWE is helpful in that, and I don't know how these things work in other families, but if it's anything like what's been the history with Davey, his legacy after he passed on, and how it's worked for me and my family, I'm just really, really grateful, and I love what's happened for Davey. I hope even more things um, happen. I wish Harry was still in WWE, but for whatever reason, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's just never seemed to have been a good fit. It's either It's like, the really good looking, the shoe and the foots, and well, the foot was too big when the shoe, or the shoe had, or the foot was swollen, and like, it should be a perfect fit.
Yep.
It should be. There's this, and for some reason, it just never seems to be a good fit, on one side or the other. And it's like, I still feel like it's not too late,
Hmm.
but I don't know if it will ever happen the way I dream it. It's not.
Hmm.
This will sound funny, but I I grieve that story that Harry should have had with the WWF or WWE. The same way I grieve that life that I was going to have again with Davey. Like,
Hmm.
I know it was there. It wasn't just me having some little idea in my head, like, what if I did become a movie star? Like,
Hmm.
oh no, this is something that really, it should have happened. I could see it when Harry was a baby. I didn't tell Harry to love wrestling. He was obsessed with it before, when Georgia was born, when she got home from the hospital, because they gave me some bottles of milk when I was just like a brand new mother, and
Hmm.
you're not sure how the feeding goes, and so I had these little hospital bottles with the cap, with some kind of formula in the refrigerator, and Harry's in the refrigerator with the door open with the thumb wrestlers, and he's got them like wrestling on the rack in the refrigerator, and the refrigerator doors like part of the ring ropes, because
Hmm.
there was like a metal rod, like, and then the just his natural ability, his wrestling psychology, and his size, and how he's picked up the grappling science of it.
Hmm.
It's just like, but I could see it, my watching Harry grow up, and and it should have become the one of the greatest wrestling stories, and it
Hmm.
just, for whatever reason, hasn't. It's, but not, I mean, nothing to scoff at what Harry's accomplished and what he did do in WWE when he was there with Tyson Kidd, and what he's done outside of WWE. But he's just such a phenomenal wrestler, and but what, all I like these old Greek mothers. I can say that because my mom was a Greek mom, but I was like, if maybe I could wear black and you know be hunched over and be, grieving the life my son didn't have. He had another great life in wrestling, and maybe there's still something in WWE, but at the moment, I grieve the life that Harry should have had in wrestling.
How did it feel to finally get that call that Davey was going to go into the Hall of Fame?
Oh, it was oh man, very, very emotional. I was in the home I'm in right now when it happened, and honestly, Harry knew about it, and he was like playing the guessing game, and my daughter Georgia, she was aware of it too, but they I didn't know where it was going. Like, it could have been different things. There were some other things in their lives going on that I had no idea this was going on. But Georgia said to get some champagne out. I said, I don't have any champagne. She said, well, get something out that you can toast. So I had this bottle of warm white wine. So I opened it up and poured it, but it it could have tasted really good if it was cold. But anyway, it was kind of like dog water, and I had poured it in the glass, and Harry was doing the guessing game, and I was like, "Oh, come on, you guys, what is it? What's going on?" And then they said what it was, and I was like, "Oh, I wish we were all together to enjoy this moment." And I was I was I was emotional, but at the actual of the the day of it, as weird as it was, because it didn't happen in 2020 when it should have. It happened then the next year, and there was no audience. But that was a moment. I'm not making this up. That was the moment I honestly felt like Davey was there,
Hmm.
and there was no audience. The audience were on these computer screens in the Tropicana arena, the Tropicana field, and it was really bizarre how Harry was making the speech to a bunch of computer screens, but uh, right right afterwards, I really felt like Davey was there, and I got really emotional, like more emotional than I had leading up to it. And I was really disappointed when it got canceled in 2020,
Hmm.
and figured, well, that'll what are the odds of it ever happening in Tampa? Because it's kind of our second home, and we were going to bring Davey's father out for it. He was able to travel at that point, but he wasn't a year later. But it was really so when it was announced again later, many months later, that WrestleMania was going to happen again still in Tampa. Well, not happen again, but WrestleMania was going to happen, but it was again Tampa. Not We didn't miss the boat on that. They
Hmm.
still went with Tampa, and but we couldn't have our family there because the mayor in Tampa still had um, some restrictions on crowd size and stuff. And St. Petersburg was where the Tropicana field was. It didn't have the same laws, but that was the building that they had for the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I felt like Davey was there after, and there was a bulldog named Buffy. Was flown in from San Francisco. She's a great little bulldog, a little star out in San Francisco. She came out to be on stage, and Vince McMahon was all for that, and his family, like they're all dog lovers and animal lovers, but there was some busybody that in the arena or something that said the dog couldn't or Buffy couldn't come in because of some I don't know, something to do with COVID, and it's like the dog doesn't have COVID. This is so stupid. But anyway, Vince was like the dog, bring the dog on the stage, and John Laurinaitis said, yeah, the dog's going on the stage. That's, but I was, we didn't really know what was happening. There was just a couple of little Napoleons out there that didn't want Buffy
Hmm.
coming out, and she did. So anyway, Harry lifted her up, put her on the actual podium, and he was talking, and she looked up at a moment. It was a very significant moment that she happened to look up at Harry, and I don't know. I feel like from that moment, and then when we went off the stage and we were in the back, I felt like Davey was with us or with
Hmm.
me. Maybe not, but honestly, I did. I felt like he was like like really like he was there.
Hmm.
And if you've never experienced it, you like somebody being with you who's no longer here. You can't maybe appreciate what I'm saying, but and that isn't the only time. But when you brought up the Hall of Fame and how much it meant, um, that Hall of Fame induction, despite things that were still going on with life at that time, Davey was there. He was. and he was happy.
What would you like for fans to remember Davey most by?
Oh, how much he influenced the way wrestling is now for in the best ways. He and Dynamite, but Davey, we were talking about being limited to things. He's not limited to the Dynamite Kid. He's not limited to SummerSlam 1992. He's not limited to Warlord in WrestleMania 1995, I think it was. You know, the Super Strong Man.
Mm-hmm.
He's not limited. He's he influenced wrestling in so many ways, you know, and that just he was a grappler. He did get trained at before becoming a pro at the Wigan Snake Pit. He did get trained by Ted Betley, and he did break in Stampede Wrestling. He did uh, revolutionize through the stuff from England to Calgary to Japan to WWF to like what you see now. He was just so influential. Um, I want people to know that he was clean when he died. He was, and I have the proof of that. The toxicology report doesn't. He was clean when he died. I didn't know that till 2025. He did get him. He got his life. He was getting it together, and a lot of that was becoming clean and maybe hitting rock bottom and getting rid of parasites out of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, regardless of the people that were around him whose watch he died on, you know, he was. I don't think Davey was ready to die, and I would like people to know that too. He was clean, but you know that's for another topic too. But he was clean when he died. He wasn't just he and I had reconciled, which that's him and me. That's not just we're talking about what I want the world to know about Davey. Just what a phenomenal wrestler he was. How much he impacted in the best of ways what we see today in wrestling. Um, you know, like that SummerSlam 1992. In 1992, that record for merchandise records that stood for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And to not be able to break that record with as audiences grew and technology grew, to not be able to break that record for so many years, it stood. And they sold that event sold out in just in over 10 hours, which was something the record Michael Jackson had before that. Like, Davey was not just this flash in the pan. He
Mm-hmm.
was, and he didn't just wrestle. I mean, he'd been wrestling since 1978. He died in 2002. I mean, granted, the last year or two of his life, he wasn't wrestling aside from what he did with Harry in Winnipeg just before he died. But he was he never quit. He wasn't a quitter. He still trained. He looked, he didn't just go down to 170 pounds or whatever. They know that the myth that he was this little guy that he and Dynamite, these 150-pound soaking wet wrestlers, that they, they were far from 150 pounds soaking wet, especially Davey.
Mm-hmm.
But Davey was only 18. Dynamite was older than that when he came to Calgary. But they were they really did revolutionize wrestling, and Davey on top of what he did with Dynamite. But unfortunately, too many people just want to just they just not you. You've been really, really nice, really uh because I believe you're a fan of Davies and of my family's, but too many people want to put this steroid um blanket on both of them, and they'll be talking about how they were you know shooting steroids in the WWF dressing room, and Brett drew a cartoon of them. It's like, you guys, if if you're gonna accuse them, you got to accuse everyone, because uh Davey and Dynamite weren't doing these astronomical amounts of steroids. They lie about it, though. They I know we were wrapping this up, but it's just important for me to quickly say
Hmm.
this. They exaggerate these amounts, and it's like, the uh, oh, Dynamite had a syringe in one side and a syringe in the other, and Davey was loading up another one. It's like, this is just such garbage that never happened. And if you trained the way that they trained, and you wrestled the way they wrestled, I mean, they were flexed and solid. Like,
Hmm.
when Dynamite took a flip, like he's when he's diving off the top turnbuckle, he's like a surfboard. He's not just like,
Hmm.
they just don't give them credit. It's like, if you guys did what they did or trained how they trained, and in Davey in particular, he took it to the next level, and he ate so well, and it's just like, but they just want to put this steroid blanket on them, and and act like they were the only ones that did, and they were going crazy on steroids. It's like, they weren't. And if you want to look at any of the let's look at wrestlers' faces, and who had the fat faces, who had the puffiness, who had just, I don't know. I don't actually recall Davey looking like he had a fat. He did have a cheeky face, because it's in his family, but he's not the one. It's the guy that has the fat face is saying that Davey is doing steroids. It's like, mm, maybe I can't name names, because that's, but it's just it's just not fair that Davey and Dynamite, um and they're not here to defend themselves. So lots of people, as I said earlier, we're all flawed, and every single person that's ever lived has done things and made mistakes, but it seems like Davey and Dynamite, a lot of stuff is just like, who's behind
Hmm.
this because they, if they had a different person handling, like, controlling the victors write history or rewrite history. um if I was as powerful as the victors that are rewriting history, the stuff about Davey and Dynamite would never even stuff that I'm guilty of saying, because I was uh, a fool. And I regret that so much. And as much as I take back and say what I said was wrong or incorrect or taken out of context, someone will come right back at me and call me, oh, say bad things about Davey and
Hmm.
also Dynamite. But I'm not here. I'm mostly wanting to clear Davey's name, and hopefully Dynamite's too. But Davey in particular, Davey, he was just such a sweetheart. He really was. He he was just such a good guy. You would have
Well,
liked him. You would have.
if it's not evident, he was my favorite, wrestler growing up. His look, his style. Um, you would notice when he'd walk into a room, he stood out on TV. Everything that he did, it was beautiful. and it hooked
Yeah.
me as a child, and I love wrestling to this day, all because of him.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear about Davey.
And
That's what I love hearing things like that. That is, he deserves to hear things or to have things like that said about him. Thank you.
thank you. And thank you for what your husband, what he did for professional wrestling, because you are absolutely right. It would not be what it is today without his influence.
Yeah. I know they all contributed,
Hmm.
but like Eddie Guerrero and you know they've all there's I start naming then I'll be here all day about who, but who influenced Eddie Guerrero? I mean, his Mexican um, wrestling background, but like Tiger Mask had wrestled in Mexico before he ever wrestled Dynamite. And then
Hmm.
Tiger Mask and Dynamite had that. If anybody ever could find it to watch it, the Dynamite and Tiger Mask matches, and then Davey going into that, and then Davey wrestled Tiger Mask, and it wasn't the same match that Dynamite had. It was because there's two, different people. Davey's bigger than Dynamite, but and then the stuff that the things that followed, like Jushin Liger, or when I knew him, Kichi Yamada, and the stuff that he had, matches he had in Calgary wrestling Owen. But, Kichi Yamada was a big influence on Chris Benoit. And then, Chris and Eddie were, they, there was a real chemistry there. But a lot of it, if you just, start unraveling it, a lot of it goes back to Davey and Dynamite.
Hmm.
But, it just, not everything great that happened in wrestling is because of Davey Boy Smith or the Dynamite Kid or because of Stu Hart but they just had such a big impact
Hmm.
in such a phenomenally great ways, and it just breaks my heart to not have them get the credit. And when you just said what you did about Davey walked in the room, you couldn't help but notice him, and
Hmm.
he worked hard to have that kind of adulation.
I don't doubt that one bit. Where can people reach out to you at?
Oh well, I have a website just got built a few months ago, and it's called www.officialdianahart.com, and I have a Facebook fan page which is Diana Hart, and I've got the world belt over my head because I have another page on there, but it's not the same as the one with me holding the belt over my head. I think it's Diana Hart. And then on Instagram, I'm Diana Hart Smith, just because that's the name that wasn't taken.
Hmm.
Diana. There's a few other Diana Harts out there,
Hmm.
and also you could find a, things about me on George's page, which is the official British Bulldog. I think it's British Bulldog WWE. I believe that's what it is. And if my website is it's it's not one of these binge ones. It's
Hmm.
more, I always say it's more cerebral, but there's a lot of nice material there about my family and pictures of my life. If you went through it, it might take you 20 minutes. And there's some t-shirts. Pro Wrestling Tees has some Stu Hart merchandise that I drew the drawing of my dad for, and WrestleMerch.co.uk in England has merchandise, so you can get it United States or England or Canada without having to pay shipping
Mhm.
if something on those websites appeals to you. Maybe.
Is there one piece of merchandise for Davey that that hasn't been made yet that you would like to see be made, whether it's a shirt, a figure, or a re-release, or is there just something in particular that you would like to see come to fruition?
Uh, well, I don't know what they have in the video games
Hmm.
and these online games, but I hope they continue to put him in those, or if they have, I would love to see like if you could get in a video game Davey and put in like have Davey wrestle Randy Orton or something. Like I don't know
Hmm.
if that's like how they do that. I mean, that you should be able to do things like that with the
Hmm.
technology, but I mean, I'm a person that almost doesn't know how to charge her laptop computer, so I I do know how to do that, but just hypothetically speaking,
Hmm.
I would like to see that though. It's like Davey in interactive video games where he's wrestling, and it is actually like Davey's mentality of
Hmm.
it's not Davey doing someone else's wrestling moves, although he probably could have done them, uh, a lot of them. But I'd like to see that, like the psychology of,
Hmm.
or if
Absolutely.
Harry was in a wrestling game, like a WWE wrestling game, I would love to see like Harry and Davey, what a kind of match that they would have had, um, each in their prime, like because you couldn't, if you had Harry wrestle Davey, even back 20 years ago, it would have been an interesting fight, but Harry would have been quite young and Davey would have been, more worn out. So I don't know what it wouldn't have been like, but if you could do that, wouldn't have been like what I would imagine they could have had in their prime. So
Hmm.
some things like that. So Davey in his prime in an interactive online gaming setup.
Well, Diana, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out tonight. Thank you for sharing stories about your family and about Davey. And thank you for just reminiscing a little bit tonight. It truly means a lot.
Well, thank you. Uh, you've been really, really generous with giving me time to go down my memory lane, and just very, very appreciative of you giving me this platform. You're a really nice guy. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
You're wrestling. You're
Hmm.
you just I sometimes you get podcasters that,
Hmm.
well, most of them are pretty good, but I enjoy them, and I maybe I talk too much. I
No,
sorry if
you're
I
fine.
do.
No, you're absolutely
Just
fine,
proud of my life.
as you should be. I will leave you with this that I hope that I love my partner as much as you love Davey because you can see it. And, that's, I'm not going to make myself cry here, but it's a beautiful thing to see.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate your time tonight.
I appreciate it too, your time with me. Thank you so much.
If there is
It's been
ever
good.
anything, if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
Oh, thank you. Maybe one day you can interview Harry. He'll give you a totally different interview than me, but he's full of, and Georgia too. They're full of some great, they've got some funny stories and stuff. But thanks.
I would love to.
And again, if there's something you need from me, let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you.